Mirasee.
Many coaches are pricing their packages or sessions based on their own self-worth versus the value of what you're bringing to the table. How are you changing these lives? And you're thinking about how you feel about money, or if you're worthy because of beliefs from your childhood, and you're doing yourself and your clients a disservice.
Money talk can get really uncomfortable, especially for coaches, whether it's setting rates, talking about profit, or figuring out what the heck cash flow even means. Most coaches would rather talk transformation than taxes. I'm Melinda Cohan, and you're listening to Just Between Coaches. I run a business called The Coaches Console, and we're proud to have helped tens of thousands of coaches create profitable and thriving businesses. This is a podcast where we answer burning questions newer coaches would love to ask a more experienced coach. But here's the thing. Being a successful coach means being a confident business owner too. And that starts with getting financially fluent without the shame spiral or spreadsheet dread. In today's episode, we're going to get candid about money conversations most coaches avoid and why facing them might be your biggest power move. I've invited Ruchi Pinniger to the show. She doesn't just get this stuff, she lives it. She's an international speaker, a former Wall Street insider, VC investor, and founder of Watch Her Prosper. She helps women-led service businesses ditch money shame and step into true financial leadership. Welcome, Ruchi.
Thank you, Melinda. Excited to be here with you and your listeners.
I am excited to have you on the show and excited for this topic. And before we dive in, would you mind sharing a little bit of your background?
Absolutely. After almost 20 years in the corporate world, mostly on Wall Street, I left to found this company, Watch Her Prosper. And we help clients, coaches, consultants, women in media, architects, creatives. We help them to organize their finances. We help them with their bookkeeping, getting ready for tax time. And all of that is through a lens of money mindset and helping them live their most prosperous lives, mainly through my 3 pillars of redefining prosperity framework.
I love it. We're going to get into a lot of that. But first, why do you think so many coaches feel resistance or discomfort around money, especially when they're starting from scratch?
It's interesting. When I started this business, it was because I met so many coaches that would say, I'm not good at the numbers. I don't like doing this. I just want to coach. And I think a lot of us just want to do what we're passionate about and help people. And we don't want to deal with all the finance stuff. We don't want to deal with all the business stuff. And we actually, a lot of times, don't realize what goes into running a business. We have to do all of these other things we're not excited about or trained in. We have shame around that. And this is why I really have created this judgment-free safe space within our company to work with clients.
Yeah, I think that's so important, having that judgment-free space. One of the things that I talk with our students about, because they're new coaches, new entrepreneurs early in their journey, and most of them, I don't have a percentage, but they've never had their own business. They've been an employee. They've been good at a thing. They got hired for that thing. They did that thing. They got paid for that thing. That's it. And so they're bringing that context when they say, I'm going to start my own business. When we have a business doing that thing, we have to expand our awareness beyond just the thing. It's an investment up front with time, energy, and resources. But long term, it allows us to focus more on the passions that we do have. And I think this conversation around money is one of those things. It's like, okay, I want to do this. Therefore, got to get smart about money. Let's figure this out.
That goes for all of us. For example, when I came in to start this business, had to train myself all around small business finances. They were completely different than what I was doing. So it's the same for me too. I mean, we all go through it. So even if it is your sweet spot, there's still a lot of learning because you're in a new field. So it's really important to feel safe to ask for help. And that's a mindset shift we need to have, to ask for support. And we have to be open to the learning and knowing that we bring in who we need to support us to do all the beautiful work in the world.
It's interesting because in the early days, a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs, there's this mixed up thinking that starts happening. I call them the villains. They start the doubts and they start showing up. And we start believing that, oh, if I have to ask for help, I'm failing. I'm bad. I don't know what I'm doing. And then that just builds the self doubt instead of saying, well, of course I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I wouldn't expect a baby to know how to walk. We got to learn, fall down, and keep learning. And like you said, we have to ask for help.
We need to give ourselves grace,
Yeah.
trust ourselves. Everything starts with self-trust. Starting a business, you absolutely need to trust yourself because it is the biggest professional development journey you'll ever be on.
In the intro, I talked about being financially fluent. What does that actually mean?
It means that we need to understand our numbers. We need to look at them. We need to talk about them. We need to trust ourselves with them. And we need to make a plan. So if you're starting a business and you don't have a plan, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. When you leave the corporate world, you were working with a paycheck and you knew what you needed to make to cover your personal expenses, to live that beautiful, prosperous life. Stepping back and making a cash flow plan is key. Understanding what you need to bring in your business, what are the expenses, that gets you to your profit. Biggest mistake. I hear this all the time. I'm profitable, so why do I feel broke? Here's why. You get to see what your profit is and then you stop planning. Your profit is not the same thing as your cash flow. Your cash flow is all the money that comes in and all that comes out. Profit is the start because you take that profit, and many of you as coaches are likely a single member LLC or an S Corp. Even if you're an S Corp, you're probably taking a small salary for tax planning, but you still need more money above that that you take as a distribution. Those distributions are not on that profit and loss report. So if you stopped planning there, then you're going to really get yourself into trouble, right? So thinking about what we said, your profit, now take into account how much do you need to pay yourself to live that life, saving for taxes, emergency fund, old debt that you're paying off from when you first launched your business. If you decided not to put in your own capital, but to take out a loan or some debt, those all come out of cash flow. We do this a lot with our clients, and this is something that's really important to really work your way. I call it the bottoms up approach. Understand all of those pieces, what the personal expenses are, paying yourself, saving for taxes, saving for emergency fund, and what are the expenses in your business. And if you do sort of this bottoms up approach, it helps you understand what revenue do you need to make to be able to pay all of those things and save for all of those things.
Yeah, I love that approach.
It's a magic number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches, there's some confusion, especially being used to having that paycheck. It doesn't matter the number, but we get into this thinking that says, I make X, therefore I need to make that same amount in my business. They focus on the top line revenue. So I love that you have the bottoms up approach because we have to be knowledgeable. It just can't be any random amount that we keep. It has to be intentional. Knowing what do we need to keep. This bottoms up approach is, I love the transparency and empowerment of that approach.
Yes. And what people have said when we've given them that number is it feels like a shade was lifted because they're operating from what was that salary I need to replace? You need to replace more than your salary.
Exactly.
In order to get your salary, just like you said, Melinda.
Let me ask you this. A lot of times I don't get too deep into financial coaching and planning like you do.
Mm-hmm.
We do talk about it because it's important to know and have that mindset. When a lot of coaches start thinking about, oh, right, it's not just the revenue I've got to take into account. And a lot of times it just feels like it's piling on and they're like, oh, I'm even farther away from where I need to be. How do you talk with a coach or entrepreneur when they start feeling like hopeless or, oh, it's never going to work?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. First, we want to look at that relationship with money, which is one of my 3 pillars. So we want to look at your money mindset. What's the language you're using, right? If you're feeling helpless and you're operating from a place of helplessness, what do you think's going to happen? You're creating that for yourself. So I want you all to sort of pause on that. And I want to share one of my really beautiful tools that's so helpful, which is my RIR method: recognize, interrupt, reframe. Recognize when you're spiraling and creating stories. I want you to interrupt them, reframe them with something more positive, more prosperous. It's not just the language, it's about the feeling inside your body. Embody what it feels like. If you're walking around saying there's never enough money, there's so many bills, what do you think's going to happen? You're creating that. You're not calling in the abundance. You're not seeing the opportunities. Replace that with something like, I'm so grateful for my abundance. Every day, there's more and more opportunity for me, or there's always enough to pay all the bills. Something like that, that feels really good. And see, what does it feel like in your body to have everything you could possibly want, to have the funds in the bank, to be paying yourself that full paycheck, to have money to invest in yourself and your business? What does it feel like? So there's that mindset shift. And then there's also the practical tactical. It's the actions around money. What are you doing to put these actions in place? I shared this bottoms up approach and how important it is to save for taxes, save for growth and emergency. So what are you doing around that? So we work with our clients to put in saving strategies to help them to do this, to make it easeful for them. So every time you're bringing in revenue, we would have you have 2 extra savings accounts, one for taxes and one for the growth emergency. Transfer a portion of that based on your savings goals, based on your tax rate, so that it's always there. I actually had a client who saved so much money in her growth and emergency fund that she could full on pay off her son's bar mitzvah.
Nice.
She took an owner draw and paid the whole thing.
And that's the kind of power we have that we can channel towards things that matter in our life, but we have to be intentional. A lot of people have backwards thinking they fall into. I got to make more money before I can do that. So let me go make more money and then I'll come back and do that. And they get into that when then thinking. Can you talk a little bit about that in addition to what you've already shared about how we can reframe that? Anything else to share with that approach?
Absolutely. I'm very much about the spirituality, also one of our 3 pillars. And thinking about spirituality, we are part of something bigger. There's something out there supporting us. And so whatever it is you believe in, God, universe, your higher self, you're fully supported. And what you want for yourself is fully available to you. If you're putting out thoughts of lack, scarcity, that's what you're calling back. The universe is a mirror. So put out what you want to bring back, right? So if you're saying there's no opportunity, there's no money, what do you think's going to happen? You're seeing no opportunities, no money. But if you start to reframe and say, everywhere I go, there's new clients. Everywhere I go, there's new opportunity. There's more money coming at me. You're going to start to see all that's available to you because your brain is helping you to see that.
Because from that place, creation happens in a way that supports us instead of negative creation based on scarcity. I want to go back to something we said earlier when we were talking about being financially fluent. You said something about understanding our numbers. And I know that was a big struggle for me personally as I was growing the Coaches Console in that business, because I had colleagues in different mastermind and referral groups. They had every number in their brain and it would just rattle it off. And I'm like, I don't know. I have to look it up. For years, I thought I must suck as a business owner because I can't rattle off my number. And then I was like, no, this is not my area of expertise. I have a spreadsheet. I just have to open it and go to the numbers. It took me a while, but I got comfortable with how I am with money and stopped comparing myself. Talk about that comparison game a little bit.
This is where we go back to giving ourselves grace.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier. I want everyone to stop judging themselves. You don't walk around judging your best friends, right? Your loved ones. Give yourself that love back. Self-trust, self-love. Know that you're doing the best you can. Start taking some action. Understand some key things, the numbers. You don't have to memorize everything, but get the right support. Know, what are you bringing in every month? What are your average expenses every month? Understand key numbers. So when making decisions, you have those in your back pocket. These are not things you have to know everything around. These are things that you just need to know are available to you, and you have the right support in place to provide that information when you need it. And that's the reframe. The numbers are the data. They're simply information to help you plan and understand what it is you want to accomplish. When you get really clear on what you want and you start to take action, that's when you really start to see things open up. And that's really key. And that's part of that spirituality and knowing you're guided and supported. I'm not saying like if you want to make $300,000, like you just close your eyes and you manifested it and it comes. But I'm saying you get clear on what you want and then you start taking action and things start to open up.
Yeah, it's a both and. Both have to be present for creation and the manifestation to happen. Now, you've talked about two pillars so far, the personal relationship and spirituality. What's the third pillar?
Yeah, the third pillar is well-being. Well-being is different than most talk about sleeping well, taking care of ourselves. Those are key. What I want to ask you is what are the things that really bring you joy? And are you doing them? Are you putting them in your calendar? Are you budgeting for them? For me, I love my regular massages and I've gotten back to booking those in advance, scheduling them out. And you budget for those. And then there's things that I also love, taking long walks in nature. I like to call it a stroll because I'm in no rush. No one needs me. I just have that time in nature. I live in New York City. So going into Central Park with my Starbucks, just walking around, looking at the trees, watching the birds. I know it sounds geeky, but I love it. So what is it that you all love to do and aren't doing? And how can you calendarize those and get them into your life?
I love that you include that. I just finished writing my third book that's coming out this summer, and it's about this exact topic. Because in the book, I talk about 6 kinds of self-care or well-being. One is the financial, and we have to make sure we're paying attention to that so that we're intentionally creating the experience. And sometimes I have found in talking with people that there's the things that we have to do. Like for me, I had to enter the data. I had to make sure I could get the reports. Did it bring me joy? Not like a stroll or a massage, but when I could find that it brought me joy because it was empowering me as a business owner, the joy was more of gratitude and appreciation for myself. I love fresh flowers, so I would often have just a big bouquet from the market sitting on my desk. And so there's different approaches that we can take to make sure that we're bringing in the well-being aspect. I love that you brought that up.
That's right. I think a lot of people don't even think about your finances and caring for those and being on top of those is well-being. But there is a such thing as that financial well-being. And I encourage you to get onto an accounting system as soon as you can, of course, so you can see trends and look at numbers in a different way.
Let's talk about one of the spiritual aspects you mentioned. You talked about how the universe is a mirror for us. And I find this true because this is one of the areas where coaches and entrepreneurs hate. I know it's a strong word. I use it intentionally because they hate having enrollment conversations with potential clients. They have to talk about money and they're not comfortable with it yet. So they avoid that conversation. And what I find with this universal law that everything is a mirror and everyone, when you're sitting down with somebody at a conversation, the person on the other side, whether on Zoom or across the table or whatever, they're going to be a mirror. If you've got money crap going on, you can count on them having money crap going on. The best way to have money conversations was to deal with my own money stuff so that I had a different mirror reflecting back. Talk more about that.
Well, I do want to talk more about that because many coaches are pricing their packages or sessions based on their own self-worth versus the value of what you're bringing to the table. How are you changing these lives? And you're thinking about how you feel about money or if you're worthy because of beliefs from your childhood. And you're doing yourself and your clients a disservice because you are not living how you were teaching. And that is the most important thing. We need to live authentically. So here I am talking to you about these pillars. I do every single one of them, every single one. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. And I'm not saying every day is a success, but I am telling you that it is part of my everyday life. If you are coaching someone, you need your self-worth aligned to what you're coaching. So this is really important when you're pricing. Let's let go of our own self-worth and let's start to think about the value that we are adding into these people's lives and how when we're on a sales call, we are serving them. It is a disservice to show up for a sales call being worried about what you're going to quote. It is a disservice to yourself. It is a disservice to your potential client.
Yeah. And I find when they show up in that way, a lot of coaches will actually make the decision for the potential client. They're like, oh, they can't afford this.
Yeah.
And so they just skip the money conversation altogether. And we teach the same exact thing. We call it creating aligned pricing. so that your prices are in alignment with the transformation that the students or clients experience. Your self-worth is priceless. Full stop. End of discussion. No matter if you are failing or shining, your self-worth is priceless. That is not dependent on anything external. When we remember that, we can separate those two so our fears aren't driving our prices.
That's exactly right. Your own self-worth and what you're bringing to that table and that conversation isn't just going to magically go away because you tell yourself, let me stop doing this. We need to work on that. We need to really work on loving ourselves, the self-love, the self-trust, visualizing. What does it feel like to be in full trust that all clients are available, that I am abundant, that there's always enough, that I am worthy of holding money. In fact, one of our clients, we worked with her for quite a while and created amazing goals using our bottoms up approach. And she had that eye opening moment of realizing what did she need to make to do all of these things. And what happened was instead of doing all the things, she made the revenue goals, but she kept spending. And I was like, there's something deeper going on here because you have the money. We had the plan, but there's something deeper. And she realized that one of her parents used to weaponize money. So she didn't feel safe to hold money. And so this is an important thing. This is an important thing. We do need to go within and understand what is happening. And how do you now start to feel safe with money after going through that as a child?
That is amazing. Was there a big financial aha moment you've witnessed with one of your clients? Is there another story you can share of what that transformation was like?
Absolutely. I have a story about Mary. When she was a young girl, she was at the mall with her parents. They went to buy a mattress and she went to the arcade. She puts her bag down, she's playing. Her parents come over to pick her up later in the day and she goes to grab her bag and it's there, but it's empty. Someone had stolen the money out of her bag. Years of therapy, running a business, undercharging, charging by the hour instead of value pricing. And it hit her after some of this work that we did together. It hit her that she didn't feel safe. She did that as a child. She allowed someone to take that money. So now she's undercharging, undervaluing herself. It wasn't until she had that aha moment of where this is all coming from that she could start raising her rates, charging the value, and being deserving of the beautiful life she now has.
That is beautiful. And there's big transformation with this. It becomes a journey of empowerment, not just of financial education. What would you say is the number one habit financially confident coaches have?
Being detached from the outcome of a sales call.
That's a good one. Talk more a little bit about that. What does that look like? What does it feel like?
When you're grasping, you show up differently. Your energy's different. The way you come across in a sales call, you may not realize people are noticing like a little bit of desperation. But when you go into a sales call, really in full trust, fully grounded, and even saying to the universe, I am here to change this person's life. I am here to make a transformation. I am not attached. I want to serve if this is the right person for me, not because my credit card bill's due next week, but from a place of service and fully trusting that whatever's meant to be yours is yours. Whatever client is meant to work with you is going to find you, and clients are everywhere. It's a different way of being and showing up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And one of the things that helps me to stay in that present moment, I'm a very tactile person. So I've got this rose quartz stone on my desk, perfectly shaped for my hand. So whenever I have any difficult conversations where I might get uncomfortable or it could get tricky or my self-doubt might show up, I just always keep this in the palm of my hand. And it is that anchor for that alignment of how I want to show up. And it's just that physical reminder. So whether it's something physical, whether it's a candle, whatever sense that you can tap into to help you stay and create that space. It's important to create those anchors. Do you have anything like that that you teach your students or clients to do?
The crystals are big. I know rose quartz is about love. It's one of my favorite crystals. I love amethyst. It's about grounding. Breathing is really important. I love 4-7-8 breathing, getting grounded before those calls. 4-7-8 breathing is breathing in for 4, holding for 7, and then exhaling for 8 while your tongue is right there between your teeth and the roof of your mouth, like 4-7-8. and doing like 3, 4 rounds of that, just getting grounded, love putting hand on heart. Also love the visual. I call it my spiritual bubble, closing my eyes, hand on heart, and sort of envisioning the conversation with that person with just like a love bubble,
Yeah.
and just again, going from full service and love, we're wanting to change people's lives, knowing that if working with us is on their path, then it's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm a big believer that our outer world follows our inner world. Where do most coaches leave money on the table without realizing it?
It's the pricing. A lot of coaches are charging by the hour versus value pricing, trading time for dollars.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then it's just the lack of planning, as we talked about, is it's not just what's coming in and going out, it's all of the cash flow and the planning. Getting clarity on that is key.
If I could wave a magic wand for the industry, I would eliminate the time for money
Yeah, that's right.
situation. I mean, there's a time and place for it. I've used it, but there's particular situations where it makes sense. But overall, if that could just be eliminated, I think the industry would be in a much better, richer, more prosperous place. Is there any belief about money that you wish every coach would challenge today or that could be turned around?
Living in abundance and ease, knowing there's always enough, even in a time where there might be financial distress on the outside world or confusion on what's going on in the outside world. You don't have to take that on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you want to share with our audience?
I think what I want to share is, I talked a lot about living that most prosperous life. And that feels sort of like, what is that? What does that even mean? I want to share a tip for people to get clarity on what they really want from their life. When you have clarity, that's when you start to take action, right? And then that's when the universe kind of comes side by side with you and joins you in that journey. Ask yourself questions like, a year from now, where do I want to be living? Who do I want to be spending my time with? What do I want to be doing in my business? How many clients do I want to be having? How much money do I want to be making? How do I want to be feeling every day? What do I want my schedule to look like? I love ease and flow. So, what are the feelings you want to have? Pick 3 every day: peace, joy, comfort, prosperity, creativity. Write down the answers. And then I want you to write a vision for yourself. I do this often in the form of a letter. I lost my mom early on. So I do like a year from now letter. Dear mom, you can't believe all the things that have happened this year. And then I write all about those things that I just answered as if it's already happened. And now that becomes your 1 year from now vision. All of your decisions for this next year are going to be based on that. That is your North Star for saying yes to things.
I love that you write it to your mom. I lost my mom unexpectedly, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. I geek out on reverse engineering. When we begin with the end in mind, okay, let's create some key milestones. So now we're engaging our heart and our passion for the vision, and then we can engage the brain thinking, here's the milestones, here's the action items. And if we can't create that for ourselves, that's where having a financial mentor or other people that you bring in to say, hey, help me craft this, help me get clear on this. And then we follow that North Star, that beacon.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is the visualization of that, right? Our mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So if you're starting to visualize what is it like being a year from now in that world, living that way, having all those things, you start to feel it, you start to show up that way, and that's how you attract it.
I love getting notes from the universe. Mike Dooley at tut.com. I've been getting this for 20 years now. Today's note was first the wows, then the hows. Visualizing it, feeling it first, then it comes to pass, not the other way around.
I love that. One of my favorite things to say is the how is none of my business.
Yeah.
We get so in our head about the how that we don't allow ourselves to have the thing. Create the vision, let go of the how, and just
Yeah.
start to take action.
So let's summarize some of the things that we talked about today, because we have covered quite the gamut in this conversation. You talked about being graceful with ourselves and having that grace, and that is so important to come from that place. We talked about being financially fluent, and the biggest mistake that you shared was that profit is not the same thing as cash flow. We got to understand our numbers and understand what those terms are. And you took us through your bottoms up approach. I love how you broke it down so that that can determine our revenue. And that is what drives everything. We got into the spirituality aspect of it. You shared your 3 pillars, which I loved, and the reframe, recognize, interrupt, and reframe. That approach, when we do that more often, we stay in that intentional place. Oh my gosh, we talked about our self-worth. We talked about being detached in the sales calls. And then that last tip that you gave us, having the clarity, because that's our North Star. That's our beacon. Ruchi, do you have any parting words?
I just want to tell everyone money is zero indication of who you're capable of becoming. There's so much more possibility.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Just Between Coaches, and a big thank you to Ruchi for this bold and empowering conversation. You can find out more about her at watchherprosper.com. That's watchherprosper.com. In fact, she has a free resource, her Redefining Prosperity Workbook, and you'll find that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to be here with you and your listeners.